Close your eyes for just a second. I want you to imagine the sound of massive, crashing ocean waves and a crazy howling wind. Imagine you're standing on the very edge of a massive, jagged cliff. Right below you, thousands of feet down, is nothing but the churning, dark blue sea. The wind is howling past your ears, pushing against you, literally threatening to knock you right off balance. Now, imagine every single person in your family can fly. They're soaring out there in the sky right now, except you. You are stuck. You're terrified. If you were standing on that ledge, staring down into the abyss, would you jump? Okay, let's dive into this. Because what we're looking at today in this explainer of Liam O'Flaherty's brilliant text is not just some simple story about a bird. Oh no, it's a deeply emotional, truly cinematic journey into the heart of paralyzing fear, the absolute necessity of confidence, and the raw power of believing in yourself when literally nobody else will. Just feel the tension in these words. The author writes that his family was calling to him shrilly, upbraiding him, threatening to let him starve on his ledge unless he flew away. But for the life of him, he could not move. And to make it worse, he had just seen his older brother catch his first herring and devour it. I mean, picture that immense, terrifying sea below. The little seagull's heart is just hammering against his ribs. His family has completely abandoned him on this rock. He is entirely alone with his fear. To really grasp the emotional weight here, we've got to look at this word upbraiding. Literally, it means scolding or criticizing someone severely. If you know Hindi, you might think of it as a really harsh futkar. His parents aren't just telling him to fly, they're screaming at him, threatening him with actual starvation. It seems pretty cruel, doesn't it? But this is nature's version of intense, tough love. They're using extreme pressure because out there in the wild, if you don't fly, you simply don't survive. Now, what's really interesting about this moment hinges on the word devour. To devour means to eat hungrily or quickly. Imagine the sheer agony of our protagonist right now. He hasn't eaten for 24 hours, his stomach is completely cramping, and right across from him, he has to watch his older brother completely devour a fresh silver herring while his parents celebrate. It's basically psychological torture. Look at the absolute contrast here. His family is elegantly, effortlessly skimming the waves, completely mastering the sky. And there he is, glued to the rock, totally paralyzed. I want you to ask yourself right now, why was the young seagull so afraid? What exactly was holding him back? If you were in his place, watching everyone else succeed while you were frozen, what would you do? To understand this, let's open up a special feature here. What is happening inside the young seagull's mind? On one side, he's crushed by paralyzing fear and self-doubt. He's convinced, utterly convinced, that his wings will not support him. But on the other side, there is the absolute non-negotiable need for confidence and courage just to survive. This isn't just about moving his wings. This is a massive psychological battle taking place on a tiny rock ledge. Notice how this internal battle builds into some seriously desperate action. The text says, the sun was now ascending the sky, blazing on his ledge. He stepped slowly out to the brink of the ledge and pretended to be falling asleep. The suffocating heat of that ascending sun is beating down on him. His starvation is becoming genuinely maddening. So what does he do? He pulls a dramatic stunt. He stands on one leg, tucks the other away, and closes his eyes, practically begging for his family to just feel sorry for him. But nobody cares. Well, actually, scratch that. Nobody except his mother. Read this part closely. Mother was looking at him, tore at a piece of fish, scraping his beak now and again to wet it. The sight of the food maddened him. The sheer torment. He is starving to death, and his mother is standing right across from him, slowly, deliberately tearing apart a delicious piece of fish. His survival instinct, driven by this intense hunger, is slowly starting to overpower his paralyzing terror. So the crucial point is this specific action, to wet. It means to sharpen, like sharpening a blade or a beak against a rock. The mother isn't just preparing her food. Her action of wetting her beak acts as a powerful psychological trigger. It awakens the young seagull's own deeply buried, dormant hunting instincts. It pushes him way past the point of rational fear. And then, driven completely mad by hunger, he dives at the fish. Now feel the rush of this moment. For a terrifying, heart-stopping split second, he falls outward and downward into empty space. A monstrous terror seizes him. His heart literally stands still. But it only lasts a minute. Then, pure joy takes over. The very next moment, he feels his wings spread outwards. The wind rushes against his breast feathers, under his stomach, and against his wings. He isn't falling headlong anymore. He is soaring. I absolutely love this line. Then he completely forgot that he had not always been able to fly and commended himself to dive and soar and curve, shrieking shrilly. There is just pure joy, pure relief in those words. And there's a massive hidden meaning here. Once you finally face your deepest fear and take that leap, true confidence completely erases your past self-doubt. You literally forget that you were ever afraid in the first place because growth and instinct just take over. The journey concludes with this beautiful imagery. His parents and his brothers and sister had landed on this green flooring ahead of him. They were beckoning to him, calling shrilly, exhausted. That green flooring is, of course, the vast surface of the sea. When he lands on it, his legs sink and he panics for just a second, but he is just too physically exhausted to rise. The adrenaline is gone, he's achieved a massive personal victory, and his body is simply spent. Notice how the family's tone has completely changed here. Earlier, they were upbraiding him. Now, they're beckoning. Beckoning means making a welcoming gesture to encourage someone to come nearer. They aren't scolding him anymore, they are celebrating him, offering him scraps of dogfish as a reward for finally conquering his fear. So, I want to turn this around to you. We've spent all this time exploring the seagull's mind, but what about yours? What is your first flight? When you are faced with a massive hurdle in your life, when you're standing on your own personal cliff edge, do you stay paralyzed or do you jump? And this brilliantly illustrates how the seagull's story is entirely universal. We all go through this exact same cycle of terror and triumph. Think about the paralyzing fear right before a major board exam, or those sweating palms before your very first job interview. Think about the terror of taking your feet off the ground when learning to ride a bicycle, or gripping the steering wheel when learning to drive. Public speaking, jumping into a swimming pool for the first time, everyone, everywhere has to take a terrifying first flight to finally discover their wings. To make sure we lock in everything we've unpacked today, let's do a fast-paced, high-value recap of the most critical lines from the text and their deeper significance. When the parents are upbraiding him, threatening to let him starve, that represents the tough love that's so often necessary to push us past our comfort zones. When the sight of the food maddened him, it shows how pure instinct and absolute desperation are sometimes required to overcome paralyzing fear. And finally, when he completely forgot that he had not always been able to fly, it proves that taking action is the ultimate cure for self-doubt. If you're studying this for your exams, these are the critical questions derived directly from the text that you absolutely must be ready to answer. First, why was the young seagull afraid to fly? Remember, it was his absolute lack of confidence in his own wings. Second, what compelled him to finally fly? The maddening hunger and the sight of his mother with the fish. And third, why did his family threaten and cajole him? Because in the wild, independence is the only way to survive. They literally had to force him to grow up. Well, we've conquered the cliff and taken our first flight, but the overarching theme of 2 stories about flying is far from over. In our next explainer, we're going to dive into part 2, the black aeroplane. Imagine being a pilot, entirely alone, completely swallowed by dark storm clouds. Your radio is dead, your compass is spinning totally out of control, and suddenly, right outside your window, a strange black airplane appears with no lights and a pilot waving at you. Who is this mysterious savior? You definitely won't want to miss that.